passionate, driven, enthusiastic, euphoric. This is who we are as entrepreneurs. But how we leverage these incredible attributes to dream and build businesses that scale and grow is what this podcast is all about. Hello, I'm attorneypreneur Josh Brown, and welcome to Franchise Euphoria. Hello, everybody. This is Josh Brown here, and Happy New Year. It is 2016, and we are kicking off 2016 fast and furious. And in the spirit of that, I've been thinking about doing something even more for you folks out there who are looking right now at buying a franchise. So if you are considering buying a franchise right now and you're interested in learning about some of the pitfalls to avoid, some of the challenges, whether or not you're approaching it in a smart way, and how to sort of determine what is a good franchise for you. If those are things that are of interest to you right now, please email me at josh@indyfranchiselaw.com, josh@indyfranchiselaw.com. I am considering and putting together a beta course on that, comprised of webinars and other kinds of helpful things where I will address those very subjects. But the thing is, I need to know whether or not you're interested in that. I think a lot of people would be interested in that, but I need to hear from you first to know if this is something of interest to you. So again, if this is something, as you're listening to this right now, you're nodding your head up and down, or you're smiling and thinking, oh, wow, that's me right now. Do me a favor, send me a quick email, josh@indyfranchiselaw.com. Let me know that this is something you're thinking about, and we will jump on a phone call to discuss further. Thanks again all for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Hello, welcome back to another episode of Franchise Euphoria. Josh Brown here. Thrilled to be here today, and it is just me today. We've had a good run of late of some really great interviews with some franchisees, some franchisors, and some other folks who adding some tremendous value just on the whole process and practical impacts of franchising. So if you haven't checked out previous episodes, definitely go back. I've got, I don't even know, 150 some episodes to choose from. But today, going to have a short, quick episode, but talk about something that's very, very important. And that is three things that independents can learn from franchises. That is, independent companies that are not franchises can learn from franchise businesses. You know, in this country, there's certainly a movement of those who would prefer independent businesses over franchise businesses. It sort of has a better cachet. Franchising just seems to a lot of people as more corporate. And there's just something to, locally owned and operated. But one thing about that is that that's sort of just a myth. I mean, when you own a franchise, you are a locally owned business. You're just part of a larger brand. That's very different from being part of a corporate business. Like you'll see restaurants where they're not franchises, they're corporate owned, and the corporate entity is an out-of-state company, and there's just managers that are running the restaurant in your state. That's very different from a franchise where the owner-operator is a local person, just like somebody who's opening up an independent restaurant. So didn't mean to go on a little tangent there, but a little distinction there at the outset. But three things that independents can learn from franchises. I derived these three after years of just looking at and helping people with their businesses, obviously from a legal perspective, but also taking a look and seeing what works and does not work between independent businesses and franchise businesses. And with respect to franchises, one thing that they tend to do very, very well if they're a good franchise is they really have a tremendous focus on systems. They already have their systems in place. And I think that's the first thing that independent businesses could really take a lesson from franchises. And that is systems rule. Okay. Whether you're an independent business or not, you have to have your process is systemized. And so you have to have things in place. You have to have a manual of sorts to be able to go to, because there's simply too many things that go on in a business or through the course of a day to be able to remember it all. And as you add employees and as you grow, it becomes much, much more important to have a systemization to what you do and to actually have something in writing that you can turn to and an actual process that you can use. That is certainly the number one thing that I think independent businesses can learn from good franchise systems. Number two is simple is better. I was talking to a couple clients just last week, and we were talking about their business model. And through the course of time, they have revamped and tried different things, and then came full circle back to the idea that their original simple business concept is really the arena that they want to stay in, because it's the easiest to understand. It's the easiest to apply. It's the easiest to follow. And I think independent business owners, at least a lot of the ones I talk to about, they can stay focused for a certain period of time. And maybe they start out with a simple business model, but oftentimes it gets convoluted as different opportunities arise and as different things happen through the course of owning a business. You oftentimes see independent business owners go astray and start doing things that's really outside what their core business is about. And I think that's one thing that good franchises all have in common, is that they have clearly identified what their business model is, and the simpler it is, the better. I mean, if you can't understand what a franchise business model is in a minute or two, and you're considering that franchise, they probably haven't fine-tuned it well enough to consider that. But I would challenge independent business owners to look at it through that lens, to think about their own businesses and say, how can I simplify what it is that I do? And I think you'll see a positive impact throughout your business. And you'll be able to more effectively communicate to people, this is what I do, this is who I am. So simple is better. And that is certainly something that independent business owners can take a page from franchises on. And lastly, focus. I think that as you look across the landscape of small business ownership, many entrepreneurs who start a business do so with one idea in mind. And then as they get going, their mind gets distracted and starts focusing on other ideas. Possibly it's ideas that they've thought of through conversations with others, or ideas that have just come to mind through the course of time. And it becomes very, very difficult for a lot of independent business owners to stay focused on what their core business is, and they get distracted. And typically when that happens, you see a decline in business. And with good franchise systems, you are absolutely honed in and focused on what your core business is. Not only is it clearly defined for you in an operations manual and in the disclosure documents that identify what the franchise is all about, but you're required to follow certain systems and procedures. So you are required to stay focused. And I think that sort of discipline is healthy for an entrepreneur. I mean, I know that, it's one of those things where it's a catch-22. I mean, one of the benefits of being an entrepreneur and the exciting aspects of it is that you're creating something, and that you are taking an idea and turning it into a viable business model. But once you've done that, it's very important to stick with it, and especially if it's working. Obviously, if it's not working, you can pivot along the way. But I find that for many entrepreneurs, it's very, very challenging with independent businesses to stay focused on what it is that they're actually trying to achieve. And they can certainly learn from franchise businesses. Again, I thought this would be a good episode for everybody, because I see this a lot. I see where if an independent business is possibly looking to become a franchise, or just in talking with independent business owners, I see this over and over again where the entrepreneur is the one that has all of the systems in his or her head, but they're not down on paper. And I talk to them about ideas that they have and thoughts that are completely unrelated to their core business. And you see through these communications and through engaging with people that it's just a challenge to stay focused on what it is that they're doing at hand. So if independent business owners can take a page out of franchising, those would be the 3 pages I would recommend. Hope this was helpful and look forward to the next episode. Hopefully this was helpful for you today. If you are in the market for a franchise, I would highly encourage you to check out my free ebook, which is What to Know Before You Buy a Franchise. You can head over to my website at that's INDY franchiselaw.com and download it there for free. And let me know what you think. If you're enjoying this podcast, if you're enjoying the value that you're getting from this podcast, I'd also invite you to go to iTunes and provide me with a rating and review. It always helps for visibility on the podcast. So thank you so much for your support, and hope this episode was helpful to you.
Thanks for being with us today on the Franchise Euphoria podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to go to iTunes and provide a review. Also, please remember that although Josh Brown is a licensed and practicing attorney, nothing contained in this podcast should be construed as legal advice, because it is not. The information contained in this podcast is general and educational in nature, and none of it should be relied upon as legal advice. That being said, if you have questions for Josh and would like to contact him, please email him at josh@franchiseeuphoria.com. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you tune in to our next weekly episode.